So yesterday on Taco Tuesday ended up being a 3 for 5 day on the day, which is fine. We'll take that. Today on PrizePicks, it's looking like another decent board, I would say. We got a little bit of a stacking opportunity just right away, right off the bat. We can see Trey Turner and Bryce Harper for over their fantasy score are going to be two good lines for us to be targeting today. So let's take a peek at the MLB slate in general. And so, yeah, the first two bets that we're going to be looking at are going to be with Trey Turner and Bryce Harper for over their fantasy score. That is a stack that we can run out there tonight as well. Trey Turner, just looking at the line, again, we can kind of just tell that the PrizePicks line is the clear outlier. Maybe the projection data is a little bit too high as well. But regardless, we can see the average sportsbook line would be setting this at about 8.5. Okay, they'd be favoring it pretty heavily for the over as well at 54% there. So with the line at 7.5, we can see we're getting a pretty good edge there. And then literally the next best bet there is going to be Bryce Harper for over his fantasy score as well. My one concern is that Bryce Harper, the last two games, has really went off. Now, he is a popular bet today on PrizePicks as well, which is kind of funny. I think people are just looking at the last two games as a reason why to bet him. I'm like, all right, well, he's kind of due for a bad game. That's a little bit concerning to me that he's been kind of just going off the last two games. But regardless, a good stacking opportunity for those two. Now, a bet that I was forced into making last night was Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa for over their fantasy scores. That was just simply the last taco. None of the bets that I wanted to be on from earlier on the day were still available to be made. So I just went with the next two bets that we had, and that was a little stack of Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton. So needless to say, those two bets hit. Needless to say, hoping that CeeDee Lamb doesn't mess that up. CeeDee Lamb coming in off of a bad game, that'd be pretty tilting there, I would say. But those are two bets I don't mind stacking as well. Obviously, Byron Buxton gets to that kind of magical 54% likelihood to hit. Carlos Correa a little bit lower. So really, if I'm using Byron Buxton, if I'm using Carlos Correa, I'd probably only be doing it with a Byron Buxton stack. And then Jose Ramirez, again, he's popping up, obviously came through for us yesterday. Not a terrible bet there as well. I would say my one concern about the Trey Turner stack is that fact that it's kind of a lower scoring game of 8 points. Typically don't like targeting that too much, but all in all, not bad. Let's go ahead and jump into some WNBA prop bets as well. So WNBA wise, the fantasy score prop bets went 2 for 3 on the night. Freaking Howard had like 2 blocks and 2 steals in the second half. Which was tilted because obviously that really helps to get the over fantasy score there. Looking at the WNBA board today, some decent ones like Smith for under her points. It's definitely interesting that PrizePicks has this bumped up to 8, even though it's about a 50-50 per the sports books for this to hit at 7.5. So it's a very interesting line there. I think we can bet the under there. I'd be fine with that. These other ones that are being valued as pushes, I don't think we exactly need to go there. I really don't mind this one with Brittany Griner, though, for over points and rebounds. The projection data one really likes this. Okay, the projection data would give her about 25 points and rebounds, which obviously is probably a little bit aggressive when we look at the underdog line and the sportsbook line, and the PrizePicks line as well. That being said, the average sportsbook line would still be giving us about a 53% as well. So all in all, not a terrible bet. I like the fact that the projection data is heavily favoring the over there as well. From there, that's kind of it, I would say. Sophie Cunningham for under her points is kind of a decent one that we could look at. If you wanted to go there, not terrible. Projecting a little bit more minutes than what she averages. Don't exactly love that, but also not a terrible bet. If you guys are maybe trying to extend a 4-slip bet into a 5-slip bet, I'd be happy to use that one. And for what it's worth, just pulling up the NFL board right now, one EV bet that we have is Jordan Love for over an INT. I could potentially see that Minnesota Vikings defense has been great. Love is coming in off of an injury. He might not be able to move around as much as I would want as a Packers fan. And with that, he might force a throw or two that he might not normally make, or maybe his arm gets hit while he's throwing the football because he's not as mobile as you would want. And I did just want to call out a bet for you guys here that I called out yesterday. So I called out Rico Dowdle to get over 8.5 rush attempts. This has since been bumped up to 9.5. And so with that, hopefully you guys were able to get action on that. Similarly, going to be a good bet going against the Giants if they're playing with the lead. I think that is a bet that makes sense. But now at 9.5, that's firmly going to be one that we're not targeting. So I just want to reiterate that. If you got the edge yesterday, good. If not, no need to force it. So let's go ahead now and jump into Underdog. We're going to kind of do the reverse order where we're starting out with NFL. NFL-wise, we're going to see we're not getting any great bets right now. So no real reason to go in on any of those. So we'll go ahead and jump now into WNBA. WNBA, one of the better bets that we have is actually going to be Kayla McBride for over her fantasy score of 23.5. We can see that PrizePicks has this 1 point higher. Again, that should be something that's never happening. This is a 1-for-1 swap in terms of how it's calculated on PrizePicks and Underdog. And so we can see the projection data and also the average sportsbook line is also still favoring the over there. So we can see that this line is pretty off. And so that's a good edge for us. I do expect Underdog to bump this eventually. We saw yesterday, I think it was, I don't know, one of the bets that we were on with PrizePicks ended up like getting dropped. It was one of the under bets that we liked for fantasy score. Ended up getting dropped by like 1.5 throughout the day. That's how big of an edge we have. I kind of expect that to happen with McBride here as well. Another one that's worth calling out in that same regard, it's going to be Natasha Cloud here for her fantasy score as well. Again, just kind of looking at it, guys, the Underdog line is off by 1.5 compared to PrizePicks. A little bit of a middling opportunity there, given the fact that the average sportsbook line would be telling us that this should be closer to in the middle there as well. But two good WNBA bets today on Underdog. And then lastly, a couple of decent ones. We got Alec Baum, where it's interesting here when we look at Underdog bumping the hits, runs, and RBIs up to 2. That kind of would make, I would say, the over fantasy score bet a little bit more of one that we would want to be targeting. So I typically don't like targeting these ones that are going to be pushes. So with that, I think we can just go with him for over his hitting fantasy score. That's not a terrible bet there. George Kirby has a great chance to get a push of his 5 pitching strikeouts. You could do that over. And then Trey Turner, not a terrible bet as well for his over hitting fantasy score on Underdog as well. Again, you could stack that up with Bryce Harper there as well, with the slight difference in Underdog scoring, not as big of an edge as it is on PrizePicks, just as an FYI, but still not terrible there. So with that, guys, let's go ahead and get into the bets of the day for today. So let's go ahead and jump into the PrizePicks bet of the day. Going to be doing that Brittany Griner over her points and rebounds of 21.5 again, mostly because the projection data likes that one decently. Then we're going to be targeting that Jordan Love over INTs. A little bit painful for me to do that one, but it is what it is. Then we do have those stacking opportunities. Trey Turner and Bryce Harper for over their hitting fantasy score. Again, if you want to run out maybe potentially Buxton and Carlos Correa instead as the stack, you can do that. And I say we should do that separately because when you include both stacks, it drastically reduces the payout for the bet hitting. And the reason why I made this a 5-slip bet is kind of that exact same reason as well, because when you add in that 6th bet, it actually gives you a full payout rather than if it's a 5-slip bet, it's going to be a slight reduction of the payout. I think it becomes a 20x instead of a 25x, which is still not bad. So if you guys want to do that, you can. So I went with that Cunningham one in that exact scenario where I mentioned where I want to extend, a 5-slip bet into a 6-slip bet. And so with that, guys, let's go ahead and jump into Underdog. I would say we're probably getting a slightly better edge there today. Let's jump into that bet. And so for that Underdog bet of the day, just going to be attacking those 2 WNBA prop bets where we are getting a pretty good edge on. Now, I did notice that there's like a slight profit boost that's going on today. I think it's like 10% and 17%. By all means, if you want to use one of those with that, you can. There's also a free square that's available as well, one that you can target there as well. So some decent edges for us today. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys want to sign up for any of those sites and you've never done it before, just make sure you use the promo codes that you see available on the screen right now. Check that out. But that's going to be all for today's video, guys. Appreciate you being here. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. We'll be coming out with a Thursday night props preview video later on today, so be on the lookout for that. Make sure to jump in there and like that video as well. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Good luck today, and as always, let's keep cashing.